2018. We will open at 6:30 p.m. At this time, the Pledge of Allegiance, please. Please rise. Switched it.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The Texas state flag.
I, the Texas flag, I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thank you. You may be seated. Do we have invocation this evening? No. Okay. At this time, we'll do introduction and roll call, please, Ms. Padilla.
Here. Present.
Here. Here.
Here. Here.
Thank you. Next up, the approval of minutes. Discuss and approve the regular board meeting minutes from June 18th. Do I have a motion to approve as submitted?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. The next one is discuss and approve regular board meetings minutes from 3/26 that were amended and sent for review. Need a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any, any questions or discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. At this time, we will move to citizen input. Ms. Padilla, do we have any citizen input? Okay. Thank you very much. All right, at this time, I'll call Mr. John Patterson on up. Hi, Mr. Patterson. You will be given 5 minutes to speak, and you're welcome to stand at the podium. You have to state your name and your address, official address, and then you can go ahead and speak.
Thank you very much. Very quick proceedings. Name is John Patterson. I'm at 2208 White Oak Drive in Little Elm, Texas, 75068. I'm a former educator, former coach, athletic director from Georgia, just a little south of Atlanta. I really do like it here. The thing I wanted to bring to the board, and first let me say good afternoon, board, is a plea to implement a sport that's near and dear to me, and that's wrestling. And I understand everyone says, oh, this must be a guy who's just a big fan of wrestling or a big coach of wrestling, and it's not that. Before I get into that, I'm one of the few people that understand the tangibles that a sport like wrestling brings. Wrestling as a sport is one of the very few sports where you have one person versus another person, exact same size. And they're able to go onto the mat, and it's decided based upon what each person brings. And wrestling is not a sport where it's just all about strength. It's about mental discipline and embracing technique. Now, the one thing that I've always loved about wrestling when I've coached it is watching these athletes, watching these young athletes, their confidence build. Because in sports, especially when you're talking about high school sports, not everybody's athletically built. Some people may be, some might be skinny, some might be a little overweight, and they may get a little overwhelmed when they see a team full of people who are already athletically built. But wrestling is one of those sports where it says, hey, we'll take you however you are. And you're going to go against somebody that's just your same size. And those kids, when they're able to see what they're able to do themselves as part of the team, you watch that confidence rise. For those people, those kids who may be overzealous, because wrestling is one of those great even makers, they see humility. And so I I've been around a lot of the kids in Little Elm, and I see that you have a lot of great athletes, but you have a lot of great kids that aren't participating in sports. In fact, in sports like wrestling, it's one where, in Georgia, it's co-ed. So the girls wrestle and they wrestle guys. And I've always carried several girls on my team, and they've always done really well. And in Texas here, you can have two separate teams. In this age, I know you guys know of all the different issues that face these kids at this age now, the bullying, the stuff. This is a sport that really helps them understand what they can do as an individual, as part of a team, and raise that confidence. Now, the cost. Everyone says, well, what about the cost? Well, the big barrier of entry is a wrestling mat. You got to have something to wrestle on. It's $5,000 to $10,000. But that wrestling mat will last you decades. In fact, the wrestling mat we use, it's seen many of reunions. Then the other question is, well, what about facilities? Well, if you're a school, you're a great school, maybe like one of the first where you have, the facilities of a separate wrestling room, that's great. But really, you just need a place to be able to place the mat. My teams, they wrestled, we practiced in the football locker room for 5 years. But we were able just to make the best of it. But every child that wrestled for me loved it. And I always told them, because the school I coached was a basketball school. We had about 175, 180 kids come out for basketball. So I always had to work to get the wrestlers. But I always told them, I said, just stick with me for a month. If you're not like it, I'll let you go. Hey, shake hands and you'll always be my best friend. Never lost one. And that school, from where I rescued it from being almost going on, it's now one of the top wrestling schools in the county. So again, I bring it to you not so much because I just love the sport of wrestling. It's just I do know what it does for kids. I do know what it does, not just for athletic kids, but for a lot of those kids who aren't able to play those sports, who don't have the years and background in baseball or basketball or soccer, but they want to do something. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Patterson. All right, at this time, the board will recess into closed meeting, and one is permitted by the Texas Opens Meeting Act, subchapter 551.072 and .074. The time is 6:38.
Holy cow, really?
We will come back into open session at 8:11. First up will be reports of the superintendent.
President Myers, board members, I'd like to ask Dr. Cindy Mickett to come up to discuss our commitment to excellence report for the 2017-2018 school year.
Good evening, President Myers, Mr. Gallagher, and school board members. As you know, last year we began the process of the commitment to excellence, which we've reported on, I believe, 2 times now. And last time that we shared the commitment to excellence, Debbie Clark was here to talk about her experience at the campus level. Part of the commitment to excellence process is to also share with the board yearly about the commitments that were chosen, as well as how the campuses did meeting their goals. And this past year, we looked on it as a learning the process year. And we met 4 times with the campuses, and after every review that they gave us, we had an after action review with the administrative staff that listened to the review. And we would meet and we would say, okay, what do we need to change? What do we think about the commitments that we made and language that we used and writing our commitments? And we made a lot of progress as an administrative team, and we will be tweaking this further as we move into this school year. We will begin the commitment to excellence process this Wednesday with campus leadership teams and teachers. And so we are excited about the process. Part of the commitment to excellence process is that they choose what their one thing is based on a very deep data analysis that we lead them through. And then they create their steps, their action steps, and their plans with their staff. And then they choose their student measure that they'll report on 3 times a year. And then they also choose their teacher fidelity measure. We don't tell them what their goals are. We let them make them themselves. And so when I go through this, you'll say, well, why are they this and why are they that? It's based on where they set their goal, whether they attained their goal or not. And so, but the process here, as we look, the first one that we'll be showing is Brent. And as you can see, they yellow, well, red is they did not meet their goal. Yellow, they almost met their goal. Green, they met their goal. And blue, they exceeded their goal.
Dr. Mickett, can I ask just briefly, is there a way to enlarge this on this screen? I don't know if y'all are, I'm having trouble seeing it.
Sorry.
I don't know if there's a way to like zoom in on it.
Yes.
Yeah.
There you go. Perfect.
Okay, thank you for the
Thank you.
feedback. Oh, too much.
Now I can see it.
There.
There you go.
Up. Up. Okay, there we go. Everyone see it now?
Yeah.
Okay. So at Brent, their commitment where all teachers will design and deliver lessons that are aligned with the relevance rubric so that all student populations represented at Brent specifically are at-risk population are successful in learning grade level standards. And they use their student measure with the MAP assessment that we give 3 times a year, and they specifically looked at their normed RIT score and whether they made the national norm or not. And then their teacher fidelity, they worked really hard with different staff, Tony and Dr. Glover in particular, and Mr. Roberts, on writing a relevance walkthrough based on the ICLE relevance work that we've been doing the past 3 years. And so in both of those areas, by the end of the year, they did not achieve their yearly goal, but they almost did. When we look at Chavez, theirs was to build a structure and support system for planning that is based on rigor and relevance to ensure high-level learning is occurring in every classroom and can be demonstrated through the success of each student. And they also used MAP as their student measure, but this campus used growth. And so they scored themselves as an almost met in the yellow. You'll see there, in this instance, there's a teacher fidelity that's not reported. They started with with planning and looking at how the teachers were planning and were they teaching what they were planning, but by the end of the year, that wasn't working as well as they liked. And so they didn't report it in the end of the year because they wanted to go back and revisit how they were going to do their teacher fidelity. At Hackberry, the commitment was early literacy kindergarten and first grade students will be on or above grade level when entering the next grade. And at Hackberry, they looked at the mean RIT score at the MAP test. And they did not meet their goal. They had quite lofty goals. And so that's one of the things that we talked about was, it's okay to change your goal so that we can show that you know what your goal is. Make sure that it's attainable. And so if we're benchmarking at a 30, then we don't want to, it's very unrealistic that we're going to be all the way at 100 by the end of the school year. And so this year, like I said, was a learning progress, and we learned a lot about how to write more realistic goals for our campuses. And so, but with their teacher fidelity, they met their goal and exceeded their goal at some of the grade levels. And so they received a green in the teacher fidelity for the walkthroughs, seeing what they were seeing in the classrooms. Lakeview's was ensure all teachers effectively plan and deliver student-centered learning focused on reading comprehension to guarantee 1 year's growth in reading for each student. And so like Chavez, Lakeview used the MAP test with the growth standard. And they almost met their end of the year goals. But they did meet their goals for their teacher fidelity, which was their walkthroughs that they conducted. Oak Point did something a little bit different. They did K through 5th grade teachers will effectively implement daily phonics instruction with fidelity to ensure student success. And they used MAP, but they used a very specific part of MAP, which was solely phonological awareness, since they focus very specifically on phonemic instruction. And so what they did was they took their lowest performing students at the beginning of the year. So they may have only had 20 students or in one grade level or 7 in another grade level because it was the bottom students that had to improve the most. And those were the students that they measured each year. I mean, each of the 4 quarters based on their student measure of MAP. And then but their walkthrough they did on 100% of their classes, and they exceeded that area. Prestwick was we will add value to each of our students, growth for every student. So they wanted every single one of their students to make 1 year's or more growth. And so they did this through the MAP growth measure, and they almost made their 100% goal. And then their teacher fidelity, they really focused on the ICLE rubric, but they line itemed it specifically for thoughtful work. And that's what they wanted to see happening in all of their classrooms to ensure that their students were making 1 year's growth. At Powell, they focused on high yield instructional strategies in every classroom every day. And their student measure was the MAP test. And they were on track and met their goal. And then teacher fidelity walkthroughs, they almost met their goal of what they were seeing in the classrooms every time they walked through them. Sorry. Lakeside Middle School, to increase the amount of purposeful reading, purposeful writing, and purposeful student conversation taking place in their classrooms. And they use the MAP test as well. They use the growth measure on the MAP test. And for where their goal was, they were on track and they met it. And then their teacher fidelity with their walkthroughs, what they were seeing, they nearly met it in all the classrooms. At the Little Elm High School, they focused on literacy across the board, every content area. And so they wanted to make sure that they were seeing purposeful reading, purposeful writing, and lots of student conversations happening in every content area. And so they used MAP as their benchmark. And they also developed a very stringent walkthrough that each of their assistant principals was working on. And in both of those areas, they didn't achieve, but they almost achieved the goal that they had set for themselves. And then we had the Zeller's Alternative Program here at Zeller's. They did something very different, and we were all amazed at what this commitment to excellence project looked like. And it was, our students will have the ability to maintain the level of discipline required for academic and social emotional achievement in any setting. And they developed a behavior matrix that went through several versions between the beginning of the year and the end of the year. In fact, if they hadn't had changed it, they would have been blue and everything, because they made such growth that they felt like they needed to push themselves harder. And so they working with the students helped them develop the system and the matrix. And in fact, some of the students came and actually presented to us during our commitment to excellence review. And so with the new matrix, it had only been in place out to less than 2 months. And so they are nearly there. But in the teacher fidelity, they didn't do walkthroughs. They looked at referrals and how many referrals did they have in a 2-week period. And they met their goal in dropping the number of referrals. And so we're really excited about the commitment to excellence process. We're excited to bring more information to you in our second year. We also, in September, will be training the departments here in the district. So finance and HR, operations, special ed, child nutrition, they will come to the training here and they'll begin their first year. And so we'll continue with the process, and it's been a great journey for us this year.
One of the things, Dr. Mickey, do you want to add, and I know you're going to talk about the assessment results next, but do you want to just give the board kind of a preview of one of the changes that we want to make with this process is we do want to have it connect to the state assessment. Now, one of the things, and I know I asked you to explain, but let me just finish my thought really quick. One of the things that we know here in Little Elm ISD is our students and their experiences are a lot more than a test score. But we also know that that test score, it is important. And we do want to focus on results. So we believe, and this is where I'll pass it over to Dr.
We believe that the student measures of the formative 3 times a year, what they've chosen to do with the MAP test is the way that they should do when they're going for academic achievement during the school year. One of the things also that we brought in was specific training in MAP for our principals. We did 3 days this summer. We brought in an NWEA trainer because we wanted to make sure that we were all looking at the data the same way and reporting it the same way. So we will continue to let them use that as one of their student measures, but we are going to add a second measure, which is the summative, which is the STAR results. And that is going to be a requirement for each campus, is that they will include a second student measure, which is the STAR results. And we will be setting those targets. And so it'll just add more depth to how we do the commitment to excellence. It's also, as a result of the STAR results coming in so late, we're actually pushing back our end of the year review in order to capture those results before they report to us.
I think this is awesome. I'm glad we're going in this direction. The only thing I'm a little concerned is a Little Elm High School. The only thing they had was literacy, and it doesn't seem like they gave as much thought as some of the other pieces. It seems like some of the other schools really thought about, okay, let's review what we have in school and what our main issues are. And I thought it would have been just a little bit more for the high school.
And Dr. McKee, you can jump in, but even though it's one word, their focus is the reading, the writing across content areas. So even in math, and the goal is you walk into a math class, you're going to see reading, literacy incorporated into that content. So this was actually just a very short summary, a one-word summary of what they're doing. So it's probably not, it's not the way that Ms. Pentecost actually wrote it, correct?
It was how she wrote it in the last 2, yes. But the thing with it is that because it encompassed so much, theirs went through such a transition from the beginning of the year to the middle of the year to the end of the year that it truly was literacy. they had developed a very robust walkthrough, probably one of the most robust that we had seen. That I know that Dr. Tipton worked hard on it with them, but they were going into every classroom, no matter the content, the subject. It was even electives, and they were training in professional learning certain strategies, literacy strategies that could be applied across contents. Mr. Jeff Wiseman was working with them on a professional learning library that they could then use swivels and record exemplar lessons across content areas. Then teachers could go and watch that and try and apply it. They had teachers that were signing up to be model classrooms. So I'm going to be teaching this strategy that you can use in social studies or math or science. And I'm going to be teaching at these periods, and this is when you can come and watch me. And so they had it looks small, but it was very concise in how they did it. And the piece that was really important here was the amount of professional learning that they put into it each month for those different strategies. And they really relied on their avid teachers to lead that way. And so literacy can encompass a lot, but when they did their deep data dig, we took them through a 5 why process. And it wasn't just that, all right, we haven't, our scores are low. Well, our scores are low. Our scores are low in English 1 and English 2. Well, why? Because of this. Well, why? Because of this. And it took us probably 7 to 8 hours for them to get down to their last why and come up with an action plan. And so it looks small, but it's mighty. And the results that we hope to see in the years coming out of this commitment to excellence at the high school. Literacy is a foundation that our students have to have, and they need it in every subject. And so I don't think they'll be changing it, but they might be tweaking the wording.
Any other questions? Thank you.
All right, Dr. Mecca, continue on.
Okay. So we have received our first round of assessment results from the state, and this is raw data. This is not accountability subset data. So this is any student who was sitting in a chair in our district on a test day and we gave them a test. These are the aggregate results. This includes when it wasn't working as well.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so the accountability subset are those groups of students that were here on our snapshot date, which is the last Friday in October. So that's the first thing that the state will do, is they will look specifically at that accountability group when we get our ratings in August. The other thing that the state's going to do is they have given us a list of students who they say were affected by the online disruptions. And there were very specific criteria on how to get onto that list. You had to have tried to log in more than 3 times. You had to have been kicked off for more than 15 minutes. One of the things that we did is that in order to not have the disruptions, as soon as we realized the state was going through another failure with the online system, is I sent out a message to all campus test coordinators and said, stop online testing, take a break, go to lunch, and as soon as the state says we're back on, we will come back online. Slowly, we'll come back online a little bit at a time. And so we mitigated it in-house. So even though we had quite a few students that took it online, but not every student made the list because we stopped the testing when we realized it was an environment that we wanted our students in. Okay, so this data that I'm about to show you is raw data. It includes everyone that took a test, whether they're in our accountability subset or not, okay? So when we look at the area of reading, The state currently reports it as approaches, which is meeting standard, meets, which is the standard that we have to meet in 5 years, and then masters, which is what we used to call commended. Okay, and so we will report it in those three manners as well. But even though the term approaches doesn't sound like it, it truly is the student got a passing score, they met standard for this STAR assessment. So for reading, as you can see, in third grade, we approached at 76%, fourth grade the same, fifth grade was 86%, sixth grade 66%, seventh grade 68%, eighth grade 85%, English 1 was 67, and English 2 was 68. And when we look at grade 5 and grade 8, I want to remind you that those are Student Success Initiative years, and our students take the assessment 3 times. These results right here are our first and second attempt. So it's aggregate of both of those. And so you will always see our 5th and 8th grade scores be a little bit higher than the rest of the district because these students that failed the first time have now gone through intensive tutoring and then have had a second chance, and we're reporting those scores together here. Because that's how, when the subset is taken out, how they will be reported is the first and the second attempt. In math, our third grade was a 70%, fourth grade 80, our fifth grade 92, sixth grade 78, seventh grade 54, eighth grade 91, and Algebra 1 was an 87. And so once again, our fifth and our eighth grade is an SSI for math. Writing, in fourth grade, we had a 62% passing, and in seventh grade, a 67% passing. And in social studies, in eighth grade, 55% of our students met mastery, and in US history, 93%. Science is tested in 5th, 8th, and biology, and in 5th grade, we came in at 76%, in 8th grade at 75%, and biology came in at 89%. But it's hard just to look at those raw scores and not see how we did compared to the state. So I did an analysis compared to the results that we have from the state. You'll notice that in 5th and 8th grade, there is not a state result there yet because they have not come out with the summary report for the second administration. So in 3rd grade, we were equivalent to the state. In 4th grade, a little bit above in reading. In 6th grade, equivalent. In 7th grade, we were a few points below. And in both English 1 and English 2, we performed above the state. And this is for approaches. In reading, if we look at meets, we were below the state in 3rd grade, above in 4th grade. We were below in 6th grade, below in 7th grade, and we were above in both English 1 and English 2. And when we look at masters, except in English 2, we fell below, and grade 3, which we were equivalent in both of those, we fell below the state in masters. When we look at math, in 3rd grade, we were below the state. In 4th grade, we were above the state. In 6th grade, we were above the state. In 7th grade, we were below the state. And in Algebra 1, we came in above the state. When we look at meets for math, in each of these areas, we were below the state. And the same held true in math when we look at the master's scores. When we look at writing, we were above in 4th grade and equivalent in 7th grade. In writing meets, we were equivalent in 4th grade and above in 7th grade. And then in writing masters, we were below in 4th grade, but above in 7th grade. When we look at science, we came above the state in approaches in all 3 tested grades. And in meets, we were above the state in biology, but below in 5th and 8th grade. And for the masters, we were once again above in biology, but below in 5th and 8th grade. When we look at social studies, in 8th grade, we were below the state, and in U.S. history, we were above the state. And that's in approaches. And then if I look at social studies meets, the same holds true. We were below in 8th grade and above in U.S. history. And in masters, we were below in both of these tested grades. When we look at whether our students met or exceeded growth in reading, the gray is meets or exceeds, and the gold is exceeds. And we will not have the state results for meet and exceeding growth until the taper report comes out in October or November. So that's when I'll do the big final report for y'all on these results. But I wanted to make sure that we showed how our growth did for reading. As you can see here, we range from 25% to 51% across the grades for meeting growth. And in math, we range from 33% to 53% for meeting growth. So I asked Doug Severe, our Director for Curriculum and Learning, to come and speak to us and say, okay, now we have our raw data results. What are we doing with it? And what's next?
President Myers, Mr. Gallagher, thank you for being here tonight, and members of the board. This is a big question for our department. Curriculum and learning, now what do? We see where we are, but as we're going into this year, that doesn't give us a lot of what we're going to do moving forward. So we had to put together a plan. One of the things Mr. Gallagher asked us to do during the year as principals was to start looking at the instructional components. So that's kind of where we started as a department. Let's start looking at the instructional strategies that we're using and how are they paying off for student success. So our first process will be building a district-wide accountability through these instructional rounds. The rounds will really stay focused on some of the strategies that when I talked to each of the principals, they said, we're really good at doing AVID strategies, or we're really good at doing the fundamental 5 strategies. And so as you look at this form, each one of our coordinators and each one of the directors here will be going through and doing some walkthroughs just to kind of see, are these strategies truly implemented at the level that we'd like to see? And then we're going to take a look at data pieces, which I'll show you in a minute, and are they paying off for student success? And that's kind of where we wanted to measure, to just get an outside look to support the principals and what they're trying to do as far as their goals, but also to give us a third-person perspective from instructional coordinators to instructional directors. Are we supporting the right things when we're trying to implement different parts of our curriculum and learning? From that, we're going to go in and we're going to look at how do we use some of this data, not only the STAR data, but some of the common summative assessments that they're going to be formulating and some of our walkthrough data to change and revise some of the curriculum that we're actually working on. Because we truly do feel if we can get the curriculum right as a baseline, it'll help teachers better understand where the TEKS are aligned. Are they at the right level? And fundamentally, do they line up with the assessment that we're going to get tasked to accomplish at the end of the year? So you can see here the curriculum, we'll start right here in the center. Curriculum drives down to instruction. That should be where every teacher starts. But then as we go down, you can see formative and common formative assessments start being built by teachers. Those teachers or those assessments are done maybe weekly, maybe on a daily basis, depending on what content. And what they're going to use these for is to drive some of their PLC discussions. This gets them to discuss the data to drive the curriculum back into the classrooms. Our perspective from a district is to look at the common summative assessments. At the end of the units, we're going to have a common summative assessment that each teacher in the content areas, some contents are fully ready to go, some contents are still under that process of being built. We want to make sure we do it correctly. But as they take those, we can actually take a look as coordinators and as a department to say, did our curriculum support what we wanted to see in the assessment, and if it didn't, what do we need to revise to make it more robust as we go into the following year. But you can see those common summative assessments also lead into PLCs, which is how teachers and administrators at the campus level truly break down the data to drive instruction. The last piece of that is we can use these common summative assessments to come over to our cadres or vertical teams to say, how are we impacting the grade level above us, or how are we impacting the next content above, to make sure that we're vertically aligned to support where our kids are going to be progressing. And lastly, you can see that summative assessment comes right back up. It's aligned to the state standards, and we're going to make sure that that curriculum stays very robust through the UBD model to make sure teachers are getting what they need to have student success achievable in their classroom. The last piece that we're going to look at here is the district level instructional coaching. This is something new. Our coordinators have really dove in and tried to really get this curriculum where it needs to be. And I think that's, again, that foundational piece. It has to be there. If we don't have a guaranteed and viable curriculum, our teachers are kind of shooting from the hip or going from where they think they need to go. I think we're getting to the point now where we can take our coordinators and start doing some instructional coaching based off some of the data we're going to get from our instructional rounds and the common formative and common summative assessments that they can share with us, or we can share out the data that we're seeing. And we can actually get these coordinators in and start coaching some of the strategies we're seeing and start building those relationships side by side with teachers, to where teachers are growing alongside our curriculum, growing alongside our common formative and summative assessment development, so that we're all growing in that piece together. I think this will probably be some of the most powerful stuff, or powerful points of our department that we can accomplish once this gets up and running.
Any questions?
I like it.
So my only feedback would be seeing these metrics against last year's metrics, the 2018 metrics against the 2017 metrics. Do we have any information?
No, we do not have that information at this time. And part of that is because this is raw data,
Okay.
and that data is our accountability data.
Okay.
We will have our accountability data to us on August the 15th.
Okay.
And so at the next board meeting, I'm planning on reporting. I don't know how quickly I'm going to get all the data compiled into you by then, but I will have a report for you that night.
One additional piece, Dr. Micka, is the comparable schools we'll have in
Well,
October.
We will get the taper report October, November. So we should have that. Last year we had that to you in January. And so we're going to aim for January, because we have to wait for all the tapers to come out and then it all to be loaded into that program 5 site. And once it is, then I can prepare the reports for our comparable districts. And I'll know what our comparable districts are after the taper comes out. So remember, last year it changed by 1 or 2 districts. So I'm assuming it will change by a district or so next year as well.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to see, you know, from 2016, 2017, and now
Correct.
where we're at now,
Yes.
to see our progress.
And I will have that for you.
And just a quick question, well, not really a question, but just kind of a concern. Some websites like schooldigger.com used this data when they updated some of their assessments of our district. And I got a phone call from a parent that was asking some questions about these scores that came out in July. And I'm used to the TAPA report in January when we get it, December and January. And I wasn't sure what they were talking about, but when I went and looked, it even says that the results are out and they've updated. So what's a good, I guess when they're looking for that information, I'm not, don't believe that information. What's a good source that I could at least direct them, or?
Well, these are not official results yet,
Okay.
because it's not this is raw data and it's not public yet.
Well, they published something, and a lot of these numbers are very similar.
Well, and it might be that they did like an open records request on
Gotcha.
the summary reports from the state and
Okay.
got it that way. But we haven't even, y'all are the first to see this except for our principals. The thing we know about our
It's there.
August data is that is what our accountability rating is based on. And we know that it changes by several percentage points because it takes out the students that are not on a snapshot. And so,
Dr. Micka,
Yeah.
it's also true that the state is actually still revising the accountability manual as we speak. How many revisions have happened over the last 3 weeks?
Well, I know
About
that
3 weeks.
in the
Oh, yeah.
last 2 weeks,
Well,
I've
yeah.
had to recalculate our projections for accountability about 4 to 5 times.
Mhm.
We
Okay.
had another release come out this week. I did get a message today that said it was adopted, but it's adopted going into effect on August the 14th, which is the day we're going to get our mass data. And another chapter, chapter 10, will be adopted and come into play on August the 15th, which is the first day that all of our data goes live on the website.
Yeah.
So we are operating on an accountability manual for this school year that I don't have faith that it's finished yet.
Okay. So just send them to what is posted on TEA? Because that's usually where I go.
Yeah, they can
but-
send them to what's posted on TEA and what's posted on our website, and then they can always give me a call as well.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
I do have a question, and this is for Mrs. Veer and Mr. Roberts. You may actually be able to help out with this a little bit. With going back through the revisions and the assessment and everything like that, and I know that we're working with the staff and everything and the educators and everything. Have we, this may be jumping the gun a little bit, but with the Accelerate program, have we talked about or even discussing the potential of including some of those students that are in the Accelerate program with working on the curriculum, things like that, and how we could involve them in this process to see how we could relate this to the students better?
Yes, I think so, and I think that's a great point to bring to the forefront, is that is an area that we want to look at utilizing those students in that area, working along with our curriculum coordinators and teachers. And we're in the process right now of having Zellers complete those documents.
Okay.
So we'll know the topics and kind of the areas where we will disperse those students. So I think that's a great thing to bring up, and we'll utilize those kids.
It's always
in that
great to
area.
learn, how kids are going to learn best from the kids, so.
And that was a big piece, a big model that we saw and that we
Yes.
really liked, with those kids working alongside of those curriculum writers.
Okay, all right, thank you.
Any other questions?
All right, thank you, Dr. Mika. Thank you, Mr. Severe.
I'll see you tomorrow.
And I believe that was Mr. Severe's first presentation to the board, so thank you, Mr. Severe.
You did great.
Joe, are you sure you don't want to ask more questions now that you know that was his first?
We'll ease them into it. We'll ease them into it.
Wait till the next time.
All right, thank you.
He had no idea what we were talking about, so.
All right, at this time, I would like to ask Dr. Ashley Glover to come up to give a brief update on our health course. And board members, just a little bit of background. We discussed this in a previous board meeting, and there were some questions about our health TEKs and where are they covered and which other courses do we cover health in. So at this point, I'll turn it over to Dr. Glover.
Thank you. President Myers, Board of Trustees, Superintendent Gallagher, thank you for your time this evening. What I wanted to do is take a really good instructional look at our locally required health course and where we might find some embedded TEKs in their content areas. So what I did prior to that, I gave you a synopsis on what I like to call our one-pager. I like to keep things pretty simple for everyone. As you know, it's a local requirement, an EIF local, and then it's a state elective credit. And that was a really important piece that we did in conjunction with you guys, is to make sure that though it is locally required, it is a state elective credit for graduation. So it does count toward graduation for our students. And that course is delivered through Edgenuity, and you'll see below some options of when that has happened, both online as a course as a freshman. And the curriculum and the scope and sequence is provided by Edgenuity, and it is directly aligned with the TEKs. Before we open the links below, I wanted to kind of give you a short overview of what these were. I wanted to give you a range of all the information and a synopsis of the information. So in just a moment, we'll open it up. But the first one is basically going to be all the health standards, K through 12, and where they are embedded in other content areas. The second is going to be a nice little synopsis of the health TEKs by topic. And then the third one is every single standard K-12 for health, in case you're So you'd like to look at that. And then occasionally I get the question about what is the difference in health and principles of health science. And so I just included that link for you to review. Health science is more the administration of health occupations, working with the public, nursing, things of that nature, whereas our health course is healthy habits that range from washing hands to the state TEAC for sexual education is abstinence. And so there's just a big range there, and that's the difference in those two. I really found the research on this pretty interesting. If you click the first link for me, please. Okay, in this first link, you're going to see several tabs at the bottom. If we could look at the health credit 0.5, that is the actual health credit that now resides at the high school as a requirement for our high school students, but more specifically incoming 9th grade. And you will notice, if we could shrink it just a little bit for me, you will notice that there are not a lot of TEACs that overlap there. What we did is we went through science, all different sciences, and also physical education. And I made sure that each grade level, it denoted the TEAC. But something interesting that we found out is health is everybody's, we knew this, but health is everyone's responsibility, because one of the most interesting parts about going through a course that ranges from K through 12 is seeing how it develops from, those healthy habits, like I said, such as washing hands. Also, we noticed that there are a lot of soft skills that you could say that are going to happen, such as we may not have a standard in health that says, go wash your hands, but you can bet that's something that's definitely taught at school as well. So I just wanted to provide you that, allow you to have that juxtaposition between health and health science, as well as see where those things are embedded.
So Dr. Glover, one of the things, again, I kind of want to repeat what she just said, is there is not a lot of crossover. So if health was not offered, many of these TEACs would not be, really not be covered. So because health is offered, we are covering all of the TEACs that, that you see in front of you. You'll see some where you have it in PE, like 3.1, it's covered in PE. And is that PE, is that second grade? What is TEAC 2?
We'd have to click along.
That's
apologize.
Okay. That's okay, but you'll see where it's, if health wasn't covered, it wouldn't be, or if it wasn't taught, it would not be covered. It's not covered as much as what I think people thought maybe it would be.
Certainly, you're absolutely correct, Mr. Gallagher. And another thing that I wanted to make sure that we dug into is what other programs and opportunities do we have that supplement these standards or the health course, regardless if we had it or not. At the middle school level, we do have 180 degrees, which is an abstinence program. Abstinence is in our standards. That does occur. And that's something I wanted to share. And then also we reach out to other school districts when we want to know, hey, what are you guys doing? I mean, we reached out to multiple school districts. We know that McKinney, Frisco, Highland Park, they do require it, but Allen won't after 2020. Prosper doesn't, and Denton doesn't. They don't even offer it. So I found it a really broad range, but I just wanted you to have all the information. Okay.
And Dr. Glover, at this time, it would not be the district's recommendation to remove health for many reasons. One, because of the TEACs covered. Two, it is actually, it's aligned or not aligned, but it's balanced with the
personal leadership.
The
yes,
leadership
sir.
course.
It's currently a 0.5 credit for state elective credit toward graduation, opposite the personal leadership credit. That's correct.
So at one point, this, and you'll have to refresh my memory, but at one point, this was offered in the middle school, not at the high school level, right?
Yes, ma'am, that's correct. So it was offered at the middle school level, opposite career portals, and we found that it fit well with 9th grade. We did have some opportunities where it's offered in 8th, it was offered in 9th, and that's where we brought in the online modality. That was part of the purpose of that, is to help students have their elective opportunities in 8th as well as in 9th, and have the option to do the online course, which many of our students did take advantage of that. What questions?
Are we seeing a vast majority of our students take advantage of online, or what do we see?
I would say I wouldn't even say quite half and half. Many go ahead and take the course as a course. We do have one teacher that does teach that specifically. That is his content all day long. And so some students just prefer to do the in-person learning. They want to do it opposite of the personal leadership class. And then we have some who want to open up more time for electives or pathways or advanced languages, and they do choose to do that online option.
Yeah, I think that was the challenge this year.
Yes.
Was just, got freshmen going in, but just understanding you lose a little bit with this class. You're losing electives. We have so many courses that are offered now at the high school. Many don't get to take advantage of that because this is a requirement. So.
And I think that goes back to, we want to make sure we communicate that so that way incoming freshmen, parents are aware. Students can be aware, but we know parents need to be aware. So
we did an after-action review on some of those things to make sure we do a little bit of a different job, a better job communicating out to our parents what the options are, not just with the online option, but what's coming up in high school. How does that fit into your progression plan, and where does it work best for your student, and what modality they should use? So we do have a plan going forward for that.
And I know we've talked about it because I think this year the challenge was, there was a change halfway through the year to not allow the online portion, and then no communication between the high school and the middle school. And so I think that's where, yeah, because I think anytime the high school is going to make a change in any type of curriculum, they've got to make sure the counselors are aware of that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Are there any other questions I may answer for you? Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Glover.
Certainly.
At this time, I'd like to call up Dr. Tipton to discuss our attendance zone review committee action plan. As you know, we have 2 middle schools that will be under construction in the very near future, Lowell H. Strike Middle School and Jerry R. Walker Middle School. And one of the things that we're planning for is the zoning, the change in zoning, and we want to make sure we have a solid plan to include comments and participation from our community. And Dr. Tipton and Mr. Reeves will discuss this. Thank you.
Very good. President Myers and school board and Mr. Gallagher, Mr. Reeves and I are pleased to be here with you tonight to give you some information into the committee plan that we've put together. And thank you, Mr. Gallagher, for letting Mr. Reeves and I work on this. It's been a fun process so far, and we put in a lot of work to get it ready. And we just want to share our progress with you and get any feedback that you might have on the process.
Great. So thank you, Dr. Tipton. We'll just start. We're in the process of designing 2 middle schools. That's the reason why we're here talking about middle school attendance zone boundaries. I know that Mr. Martin is going to provide an update to you here shortly on where we're at in the process on that. So we'll let him go over that. Want to go over tonight, we are presenting this to you, this action plan, to just get feedback from you. And then also tonight, we're going to, whatever we show here tonight, we're going to put on the website tomorrow. So that'll be up for the public to see as well, this action plan, plus any corrections or modifications based upon your comments as well.
So as Mr. Reeves said tonight after the meeting and after any comments that you guys have, the website is ready to go. Casey Bain has worked very hard, and the website is ready. I'm going to send her a text in a minute after we sit down, and she's going to flip the switch and make it live so that everything is up to date and current. And as soon as that happens, during the rest of this month, during August and September, we're going to have publicity for the website. We're going to use social media to make sure everybody knows that it's out there. We've actually seen some social media buzz about asking questions about what the process is. We really refrained from answering any of those questions because we wanted to bring the process to you, make sure that everything was good with you guys. And then we will open the application for the zoning committee on September the 1st. And it will stay open all of September. We'll again do more publicity and make sure that in every way possible that everybody that wants to apply will have a chance to apply. And then in October, we will determine the members and confirm the meeting dates. And Mr. Gallagher, I'm not sure if you've visited with the board about the whole process, but Mr. Gallagher has asked. You're doing it right now. I'm doing it now. Okay, all right, I'm doing it now. Mr. Gallagher has asked that each board member please would nominate one person for the committee. And he said he'd work with you guys on collecting those names as well. And we'll add that to our list. The committee will be comprised of a maximum of 30 members from the community. And so it would be 7 from you guys, and then 23 members of the community are able to apply or able to be accepted. We're going to focus on, the committee members will focus on enrollment, future enrollment trends, overall growth, projections, housing patterns, transportation, staffing needs of both campuses. And then we have, and we've put November, December. So on some of these, you'll see 2 months. We want to make sure and leave ourselves the leeway in case we have an extra meeting or in case there's a delay of some kind. But we'll shore all of these up once the committee is chosen. We're going to have 2 middle school meetings, and we're going to include Templeton demographics on those committee meetings. And we'll make sure that we go over all the plans. We'll make sure that Templeton's involved, that the committee knows what the options are. We'll let them kind of hash out the process for looking at the zones and how we're going to split things up, and then we'll take recommendations from them.
So once the committee determines options or concepts, and so it could be 1, could be 2, could be 3 or 4, hopefully it's 1 or 2, but it depends on what the committee dictates what that'll be. We'll have public meetings, and we're looking at having one at Lakeside Middle School and the other one over at Prestwick. We'll also do a virtual presentation for those people that cannot make those meetings, that they can look at it on the website and get all the information to provide feedback. We've seen that work in the past. We also want to present this to the DEIC just to give them an update as well. We're also going to, before we bring it to the public meetings, we want the principals to have input on that too. So we'll show that presentation to them, just to get some feedback for that. We'll talk about the different options. We will have maps there for them. We'll give them a little idea of what the concept was, how the committee came to their conclusions or their recommendations. We'll have a little Q&A after that. All those question and answers will be in a packet that we present to the Board of Trustees, so you get all that information so they can say, Rod said that he would tell you and he didn't tell you. And we want to make sure you get that directly for that too. And so after that, we're looking at a board workshop. We want to make sure that we bring it to you so you can look at it. We don't want you to necessarily make action that particular night because there may be some things need to be modified. So we're going to give you a chance to digest that. We could make a recommendation to you in March or April. And so you could do possible approval of those zones for that. You don't necessarily have to. You may say, we want Dr. Tipton, you go back to the drawing board with the committee, and we were able to do that. We want to do it to where there's about a year in advance to let the public know what these zones will be, just to give them an idea and make some arrangements if they need to. And so it just, we think it's good to give people more time to think about what's going on. School begins, of course, August of 2020, and that's when these zones will take effect. And so that's sort of our action plan. And so we'd be happy to answer any questions or comments.
Any questions from the board?
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Reeves, and thank you, Dr. Tipton, for working on this, because this is one of the things that we really want to make sure we get some community input. That's why we do have 30 people on the committee, and we'll have applications out there. We want to open it up and have a nice representation from the community in terms of not all 30 members from one neighborhood or from one area. We're really wanting to make sure we've got a nice representation. So thank you. Next, I'd like to ask, and it looks like she's already at the podium, Ms. Jones is going to talk about our thought exchange results.
Good evening, President Myers, Mr. Gallagher, board members. I don't get to do this very often, so this will be fun. Hopefully you guys have had a chance to review the thought exchange. Huh, that sounds oddly familiar. Oh, I'm
I think we only need one Miss Jones.
Okay. Where's that coming from? That's weird. Okay, hold on just a second.
I'm looking forward to going back and watching this one.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun.
Okay, we're good. You know, back in my television days, we'd wear these IFBs and we were on delay. So we'd speak live, but then it would be delayed in your ear and kind of mess you up. So anytime you see a performer and they rip that thing out of their ear, now you know why. There's a little bit of a delay. All right. So hopefully you've had a chance to look through some of those thought exchange results. They've been live for 2 weeks now, but I'm here to kind of go back in history and talk about how we've utilized it. Back in May of 2016, we conducted our first thought exchange. And from that first engagement, we had 883 participants who offered up more than 1,000 thoughts. And we posed 4 questions. And if you remember correctly, we really wanted to keep it generic. We wanted to ask people what their concerns were about the district, what they appreciate about the district. And we wanted them to share a story about our mission statement, engage, equip, and empower, and then any other thoughts that might come to mind. We were really pleased with the outcome. It being our first time, we felt like it was well received by the public. We did it again. It was actually in April of 2017. It was about the same time we were going through the bond discussion, and that focus was really about facilities. If you can, you'll notice our participant number increased to over 1,000. They offered more than 2,000 thoughts, and we posed 4 questions. We wanted to know what they thought about, enhancing our classrooms to make them more innovative. We wanted to engage them on that STEM focus for curriculum and their thoughts about a new middle school and existing facilities. And I believe that the reason why we had high participation is because facilities at the time was kind of a hot topic. This time we simplified the process and we really only posed 1 question. And there was some discussion, Daniel and I talked, and I think we really do a great job internally talking about our culture and the things that we're branding. We're one community, one pack, we're a family. I always refer to this, and I pull Cleota into this because she was there that day and Tony was a witness. But we challenged them and we gave them a blank piece of paper and said, when you see this brand, RLE Wolf, what comes to mind? And this was in front of a bunch of HR people throughout the DFW area, and luckily all of our employees passed. Cleota's like, we're sweating. But they all said the same thing. We're family, we engage, equip, and empower. So we know we're doing a great job internally with our folks, and we know how they feel. We're doing organizational health. We're changing the culture. But we really wanted to gauge how the community feels about the district. Are we doing a good job? Are they hearing our message that we're sharing internally? And so that's where this 1 question came from. And we wanted to know what our families are telling other families that are considering moving to Little Elm. And so that was the question that we posed. And so I'm going to take you to our website. It's the first banner that you'll see when you get to our website. We also have it down here. But a page that we've really been focusing on, it used to be our realtor page, but now we've changed it to Why Choose Little Elm. And so we've placed it here as well. So you can click on it. And there was a little summary I wrote about why we did this engagement. So I want to take you through this website. Now, our participation was not as high as the other ones, but I feel like this is a good number. And let me tell you why. Anytime we send like a Google form or a survey, we're pleased with the participation, but it's normally, depending on the topic, 200, 300. So I think almost 700 people who are engaged is really a good number. And even the members of Thought Exchange that I worked with, they said that really, I know it's not a high number, but that's really a good number for that one question. And they offered 374 thoughts, and they assigned over 4,000 stars to that thought. And so on this page here, this is a snapshot of the 5 most popular thoughts that received the most stars. And so you can look through here, welcoming environment. They said great things about our staff. They talked about our growing community with a small town feel, that it's such a welcoming district. They touched on safety and discipline. They feel that their kids are safe. And then about just the district and how we treat all of our families like their family. When you go to the theme results, here's something new. Thought Exchange really has revamped their system and the way that they push this out to the public, and it's a little bit more engaging. So they took all of those thoughts and they categorized them. So you can see here, they've made these groups: program and administration, leadership and culture, and learning environment. And this was based on the responses that we received. So when you click on this, it's going to break it out. And so you can read more about what they're saying about our teachers and staff, our curriculum and instruction, the STEM, homework and testing, and student support. Go back to that. Leadership and culture, district appreciation, opportunities for improvement, school communication, parent participation. And even when you click on this, it'll take you to what people were saying. And I do have to say, there were maybe negative things that came in, but they were sprinkled. It wasn't overwhelming negative. And I showed Daniel the results, and he was like, this is amazing. People are saying great things about our district. He did, yeah. He was like, it was amazing. It's incredible. I
think when you say that, let me jump in really quick.
Sure.
What it tells me is that the message that we are putting out for the district, people are starting to hear. It's resonating with people. And, we know the reality that there's a lot of work we have to do, especially when it comes to STAR scores. And you saw Mr. Severe stand up there tonight to talk. He was talking about the things that we're doing to address that. But the fact that we have, and I would say you're right, there are some, I wouldn't call them negative comments. I would describe them more as opportunities to reflect on how people perceive the district. They're really far and few between. Yep. It's pretty impressive when you go through here. And I think, is it under number 5 district results? Is that where? I'm not sure if this is where it is, but actually it is. When you have time, I would highly recommend board members to go through here and read this, because it reaffirms the work that we're doing to get the message out about the district and the great things that are happening.
Yeah. And the reason why we put it on the Why Choose Little Elm ISD page, we're promoting that page. We're boosting it, and it's reaching. I mean, Tony had a conversation with a Louisville ISD board member who gave us kudos for what our work that we're doing here, videos and the things that we're pushing out. So we know that other districts are looking at us, and even my colleagues will like and go, yeah, that's a great video. Of course it is, I did it. But anyway, I didn't say that really. But the point is that we want to reach people that are looking to move in the area and haven't made that decision yet. And we're just trying to make that easier. I know with great schools and that website out there, we don't have control over that, but we have control over this. And so we've created a page where people can get all the information that they need about the district, including the things that people are saying about us.
Well, I think that's the key. again, we control it, but we don't control what people say.
Sure.
This has all of the 657 comments
Right,
or
and
600.
they're organic.
So I do think that's something, when people ask you about great schools, send them to this page as well, because you see actual comments in real time from people that are currently
Today, yeah,
in
today
Elm
information.
ISD.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, oh, I'm sitting here.
And see, and to make it even more easy for them to navigate, if they really want to know more about Chavez, they can click on the schoolhouse and it'll give them information just about Chavez. And so, again, they can read through here. The stars means that this really resonated with a lot of people. So what's interesting about this process is we may have had low participation. We had a lot of thoughts, but we had more people star. There was just, it's weird. Like, you don't have to offer a thought to star. You can star something without offering a thought. It's really a neat concept. But anyway, I just wanted to take some time and really dig deep in the website and show you more. I'd be happy to answer any questions if you have any.
Any questions?
Great, thank you.
Good.
Thank you, Mrs. Jones. At this time, I'd like to invite Mr. Martin up to discuss the bond and district construction updates.
President Myers, trustees, Superintendent Gallagher, good evening again. Here we go. A quick update on the 5 projects that we have going on right now. 4 of them are bond and 1 of them is a combination of funding sources. I'm talking about Walker, Strike, and the 2 vestibule projects. This is the latest site plan that has been developed for Walker. There's been a lot of work that's taken place over the last 30, 40 days of getting the project scopes back into line with what the original programs were. Through a lot of cooperative effort and a lot of ingenuity, the teams have been able to pull us back into our original square footage, which is helping to keep a cap on the cost and preventing creep. For both the middle schools, we are through DD. We've started to work on the construction documents themselves. The first week in August, we'll get our first real cost estimate from both CMs for each project. So right now we're on target with our schedule and continuing to try to control our costs. Both these projects we're utilizing the same footprint for both projects. One is just a flip or reverse layout of the other. Strike, we had some conversations about that earlier this evening. We are continuing to develop there and to work with our seller. Again, it's the same footprint, just flipped over. The vestibules, I was by this afternoon, just confirming that in your upper left-hand corner, that's when they first started taking the things apart. The lower right-hand corner is where they were last week. Today, there's glass in that frame. The walls have been finished, they're painted. They will be putting down the finished floors this week, and we'll have some punch items that'll take place then next week. But they're both on schedule to be operational by the time school starts. Our 5th project is the transportation facility, which we'll be talking a little bit more about here shortly. We are complete with documents. It has been bid. You can see here, we attended a sub-bid opening on the 21st at Balfour Beatty's offices, where they collected all the subs. assembled their numbers, presented a GMP to us, which we've gone through, and we're very close to our original budget that we had scheduled out for it. So we'll look a little closer at that next time around. Any questions? I think we're still on target, on schedule, and moving forward.
Any questions from the board?
Mr. Martin, just for just public record, public knowledge, when are we looking at starting the construction of the two middle schools, the actual groundbreaking?
Probably around the first of the year. We're still on schedule to present GMPs for both those projects to you in November. So, I mean, how long, if it takes them 30 days to get all the paperwork turned around, we could be starting first of the year. Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, we'll move into action items. We're going to move item I up. And we'll start with that one right now. Discuss and approve the project budget and construction GMP for the district transportation facility.
There was a rumor that might happen.
Yes. Sorry, I should have probably told you.
Okay. What you see there in front of you, this first page, this is the transportation facilities budget. And it's made up really two pieces. One is the GMP, which is the actual number that we've received from our CM on this project, which is Balfour Beatty. Their project GMP is 8.772 and change. If you go down to the bottom, that gives us a total project budget of 10.894034. The GMP plus all of the third-party items, which we're managing ourselves, and some of the off-site improvements, gives us that total. Behind that page is the breakdown of the GMP, which shows you how they came up with their number. We've gone through that and agree with the majority of it. I would entertain any questions you might have.
At this time, I need a motion to approve as submitted. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions for Mr. Martin? All right, all those in. Okay. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Martin. All right, then we'll go back to item A, discuss and approve salary range schedule for the 18-19 school year.
Good evening, everyone. The administration is recommending the approval of the administrative, clerical, paraprofessional, and auxiliary salary range schedules for 2018-19 school year as submitted.
I need a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any questions? Good. All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed?
Abstain.
Abstained? All right. Motion carries. I know, I had to count. I just counted on my 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay. We're good.
Madam President, we may.
I got it.
Okay. Next up, discuss and approve 1 FTE special population coordinator.
And due to the increased demands of the special ed department with the dyslexia programs now coming under the heading of special ed, we're requesting or recommending the approval of an addition of one special populations coordinator FTE.
All right, do I have a motion? I need a motion to approve as submitted, please.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions for Ms. Epps? Okay, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Epps. Okay.
Mr. Grant, do you want to change the item so I guess can
Change the item
the action item? Do we want to?
on the finances or on the chapter 41?
The one for our guest.
Oh, he doesn't want to, but we sure can.
I just want to move
We'll
it
do
around
that
so
for
that
him.
way he can. he doesn't have
Okay,
to stay
sure
here.
we can.
Which item was that?
Item H.
The chapter 42?
Yeah, no, this is, would be action item D, TASB risk management.
Okay, pretty good, yeah.
Then let's move to item D, discuss and approve TASB Risk Management Fund.
Yes, you might know that all of our overhead costs are going up, and one area also is our property casualty and work comp insurance. And we had Trey Wombley from Commercial Risk Services help us come in and consult with us, and he helped us with our bids. We went out for bid, and we only had one company, our current TASB pool or co-op bid on our full package. And we are going to realize $117,000 increase from last year. And as Trey would testify, is the market's very hard out there, and it's not unique just to Little Elm, but a lot of the organizations and school districts are experiencing the same increases. So that is almost a 60% increase in our premium. So it's going from, our total package is going from $213,000 to $330,000, again, $117,000 increase for 2018-19. The administration recommends approval of the TASB insurance policies as submitted.
I need a motion to approve as submitted.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Any questions for Mr. Anderson?
Just to double check, you said that, I just want, the difference, you said the increase is the same 117, but on the agenda item here, it shows from 304 up to 421. You were saying 200 and change to 300 and change. By chance, did you just have your numbers wrong, or the numbers incorrect
On the agenda item,
Yes. Under
Agenda-
financial implications, under total?
You've got it broken down by property, school
yes,
liability.
and work comp
and work.
also. So there's a total increase of $117,151.
Okay, you were just quoting just the property increase, okay. Yeah, but, okay,
It's 304.
But I see what he's saying. He's
And then
saying
work
the
comp
totals
and down
I
37.
understand what
Yeah.
you're saying. The totals were off.
yeah,
Total-
okay.
You said the totals were like 200 to 321, but it's actually 300 to 421?
I have $330,521. That's the new premium from $213,333.
In board book, it's 421,566.
Yeah, it says 304 to 421.
Okay, I'm sorry, and that includes the work comp, 91,000.
Okay, that's what I was.
Sorry about that.
Okay, so you did, okay, you said
Yes.
liability and property in your numbers, okay.
Yes, and
Not,
then
okay,
work
not
comp.
including workers' comp, okay,
That's what threw me off too.
okay.
The only question I
Thank
had is some of this just due to
Well, yeah, it's,
roofing? I mean, obviously
yeah,
hailstorms.
our loss ratio. Was that, you can come up and, I mean, you waited this long to.
The main implication is on the property end. all the other coverages are pretty much static. And property market right now, the underwriting appetite, especially when it comes to wind and hail right now, is just brutal in both Texas and Oklahoma. 63% is actually relatively gentle. I'm seeing a lot of other school districts in both Texas and Oklahoma. They're seeing 85% to 100% plus increases. And that's not even with our loss history and ratio to our total insured value. So, I mean, we were hoping to get some more activity and some more responses, but it's not unexpected. But there was extensive due diligence done as far as approaching all the major markets and directly soliciting responses, and unfortunately, it just ended up what it was. So.
Thank you, Trey.
Any further questions?
Yeah, I do have one more. Is there any potential cost savings on splitting it out, or just under different carriers, or is it more advisable just to go with the one carrier?
Well, the one carrier, TASB, the risk pool TASB, is all that we received. We did get one other response on workers' compensation, but there was no cost. Actually, it was less of an attractive offer, and we scored it according to the state guidelines for purchasing evaluation.
Okay. So on the liability insurance on the workers' comp, we only got one response.
TASB.
So basically, other vendors just don't want to touch school districts.
They just didn't. Well, as far as we know, they were approached, and underwriting didn't offer pricing for us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? All right. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. That was item D.
Thank you, Trey, for staying. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right, so then we'll move back to item C, discuss and approve financial reports.
In front of you, you have the financials for May 2018, and the budget amendments include all amendments through July 2018. The estimated budgetary fund balance increases $2,005,678. And the major budget amendments increased estimated revenue of $2,068,000 for higher than budgeted tax revenue, and also an increased estimated revenue of about $1 million for higher than budgeted state revenue. And in their budgeting, I budget 98% of our revenue, and now we're moving up to 100% as we get close to the end of the year and understand our state funding. And the increased appropriations, about $475,000 to cover overages in functional areas, which may result from the end of the year accruals, reclassification, or audit adjustments as we approach August 31st, fiscal year end. And the increased appropriations, $500,000 for summer maintenance projects. And this is to get those summer projects that are ongoing, if there's any other projects we need to complete. This is where in the fund balance, our initial budget, we passed a balanced budget, and prior to tonight, we had $26.8 million, and we'll increase our planned budgetary fund balance by $1 million, moving our total fund balance, our total budget fund balance to $28,811,000. And the change is again a $2 million surplus. So we're ending up right now with a $1,024,000 surplus, budgeted surplus. And these are our financials, start at $66.5 million initial estimated revenue. The proposed amendments tonight to increase our estimated revenue by $3 million. We'll have an estimated revenue of $71 million. The functions directly appropriate at the campus level, 75% of our total budget. And that number does change. It'll decrease normally throughout the year, and that'll be a pattern we'll see because we have a lot of summer projects that come up. And of course, those dollars, although they're at the school level, are at function other than these functions. And our function 81 in facilities. Again, our appropriations at the beginning of the year matched our estimated revenue, and our budgeted appropriations 70.4 million, again with a $1 million surplus. And that's a budgeted surplus. And there's our actual summary just for our general fund budget to actual. Our total revenue, we've realized 90% of our revenue. Our expenditure is about 78%. And so we have about 300, I think that, oh yeah, that's our other sources. We've realized about $357,000 net transfers in. And so our revenue over expenditure is about $8.3 million, just up through May 2018. And our cash flow beginning balance is $59.8 million. We received our first bond sale, about $140 million. Right now, our ending cash and investments, $206 million. That's invested in pools, in Texpool and Lone Star. And our capital projects, the high school expansion has been completed, and it got completed within budget with about $286,000 remaining. Our transportation and operation facility, as Rick was discussing, that the estimated project is $10,895,000. Year-to-date expenditures, $974,000. So there'll be $9,920,000 to be spent on the project. The estimated project total, again, $10,895,000. The funding for this project is $2,594,000 from the 2002 bonds. And this was part of the February 2nd, 2002 bond election, which included construction and equipment of maintenance facility. The sale of King property, we netted about $999,000 that went into this fund to finance the operation facility. We've transferred in to the construction project for the operation $2,715,000. And before it's completed, we'll transfer another $4,686,194 from the general fund. And these are the financials that are also included in your board packet. The administration recommends approval of the May 2018 financial reports as presented.
Need a motion to approve as presented?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions for Mr. Anderson?
Yes. So as it stands now, we have about $1 million over remaining, is that right?
Yeah, if our estimated budgetary fund balance, I'm estimating at this point in time about $1 million surplus. And my expectation is that we'll end up with a surplus about $1 million. We have that transfer out from the general fund for the transportation operation facility, about $4.6 million. We'll take a portion of that, if not all of it, this year. And then we'll manage that, the fund balance to end up in a surplus.
So we'll transfer from the
general fund to
about 3.6 million. Plus the 1 million, right? Okay.
Yes.
So we decrease by 3.6 million is what we should decrease from general fund. Okay. So we have two transfers from general fund, one for 2.7 million, then one for 4.6.
Yeah, we've already transferred $2,715,000. Now, in order to fully fund the transportation project for the first time in 7-8 years, because I know they've always wanted to
4.6.
And originally
we were at 7 million originally when we budgeted, or 6 million? 7 million? 7.5? 7.5.
Up to 7.5. Yeah, it was any other operations.
We added more to it, but
Yeah.
in the beginning, it was just
the
buzz,
buzz.
and then we.
Yeah, and this is the first time we've we've budgeted according to the cost of the project. Before I think it was more of a deductive that we have $3 million put towards it or $7 million towards it. But right now with the savings in our fund balance and the management of our general fund, knowing that we're going to have to move off the property at King, and we're able to move out of the general fund sufficient enough funds to build the transportation facility. So on that, again, I'm not so sure we'll move out the $4.6 million out of this current year, but it'll be a portion of it. And then we'll.
Any other questions? We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next up, discuss and approve to set date, time, and place for public meeting on budget and proposed tax rate.
Yeah, for the 2018-19 budget, the board will set the date, time, and place in today's budget for the budget hearing. The administration recommends approval of the August 13, 2018 at 6:30 p.m. at the Zeller Center for Learning and Leadership as the date, time, and place to conduct the public meeting to discuss budget, proposed tax rate, and recommend the following proposed tax rate: maintenance and operation, $1.17 per $100 value; interest and sinking or debt service fund, 47 cents per $100 value, with the total tax rate of $1.64 per $100 value.
Need a motion to approve as submitted?
So moved.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. Discuss and approve Little Elm ISD interlocal summary report.
We have two items on our local summary report. Mr. Ross Roberts has the communities in schools of North Texas, and this is for the dropout prevention program on the campus of Little Elm High School. And there's a change for the annual contract going from $66,000 to $32,000. And then the second was a Denton County tax assessor. They charge for the tax bills to send out 82 cents. That's going to go up to $1. And we looked and have about 22,723 properties. The administration recommends approval of the Little Elm ISD interlocal summary report as submitted.
Need a motion to approve as submitted? Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions from Mr. Anderson? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. Discuss and approve Little Elm ISD contract summary report.
On the contract summary report, again, there's two items. One is the ESC Region 11 contracts, and the renewal is actually going down $6,726, and this is for various products and services, like purchase orders and contracts and agreements or other appropriate legal methods from ESC Region 11. And this is various contracts, again, throughout the instructional curriculum and technology and the business services. And then Dr. Pepper Bottling Company, this is just a renewal of our current contract to the extension of exercising the beverage license agreement, again with Dr. Pepper. The administration recommends approval of the Little Elm ISD contract summary report as submitted.
Need a motion to approve as submitted? Do we have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All right, all those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, next up, discuss and approve the act on agreement for purchase of attendance credits, netting Chapter 42 funding.
Yes, this will be the third year that Elm ISD is designated Chapter 41 district. And the first year, we didn't have a recapture. Again, you go to Chapter 41 when you hit a threshold where our property values, our property values per WADA is at a level which is 319,500. And then the state will recapture the other funding distributed to Chapter 42 districts, and it's the Robin Hood, referred to as the Robin Hood Plan. And there's 5 provisions on how we settle with the state, and the one is consolidate with one or more other school districts. Number 2, detachment and annexation of property. And number 3, is the option that we'll be recommending and that we have the last 2 years, is purchase of attendance credits from the state. The 4th is a contract for education of non-resident students. And number 5 is the tax-based consolidation. And the financial implication, this current year in 2017-18, we estimate about $500,000. So in recapture next year, approximately 1.2 million. The administration recommends the Board of Trustees approve the 2018-19 agreement for purchase of attendance credits netting Chapter 42.
I'm assuming I'm reading.
Yes, please.
So I need a motion to approve as submitted for the 2018-19 school year. We delegated contractual authority to obligate the school district under Texas Education Code 11.1511 C4 to the superintendent solely for the purpose of obligating the district under TEC Chapter 41, subchapters A and D, and the rules adopted by the Commissioner of Education as authorized under TEC 41.006. This included approval of the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits or the agreement for the purchase of attendance credits netting Chapter 42 funding. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? For Mr. Anderson? Mr. English?
Yes. So can you explain a little bit more about this tax-based consolidation?
You know what? I'll have to get more information on the technical part of what transpire if we're going to consolidate tax base. Jesse, do you? So it's, yeah, it's, the other one was the consolidation, and otherwise you can partner with other school districts and consolidate between a 41 and a 42.
Okay, so
The
we take
tax
I got you.
base.
So we take a Chapter 41 and then a Chapter 42.
And a 42 would
consolidate
match them,
those,
yes.
and then it would disperse the money
Between
evenly
them,
among those.
yes.
And then the second option was annexation of property.
We
Yes,
don't want
that'd
to
be
give
the-
property away.
Yeah, of course, if we did that, our property values would decrease, and therefore our property value per watt would decrease.
Yes, funny way they word is it. Detachment and annexation of property. Annexation usually when you take property, you don't give property away.
Any other
All right,
questions?
I have to say this for the record. This is completely unfair. I'm just gonna say it. You're penalizing our district for $1.2 million.
Correct.
Talk Jared.
Any other questions for Mr. Anderson? Okay. We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, please raise your hand.
Yeah.
Any opposed?
Well, that's the thing about it, right? You get your arm twisted by entity that has nothing to do with this, right?
All right, motion carries. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you.
Anderson.
Thank you, sir.
All right, next up, consent agenda. Any items that you wanted to pull? No? All right, then I need a motion to approve consent agenda as is. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor, please raise your hand. Any opposed? Motion carries. My only comments for tonight were, remember that we do have 3 meetings in August. We'll have a finance workshop, the budget meeting that Mr. Anderson just talked about, and then our regular board meeting. So if you can, if you're not able to be at one of those, please let us know.
Miss Padilla sent calendar invite.
Calendar
She
invites,
did.
dates, hold on a minute.
Yep.
6th, 13th, and 20th.
The 6th, 13th, and 20th.
Yes.
3 weeks in a row.
6, 13. The 20th, I will not, most likely I'll be the day I may miss. I'll double check with that one, okay?
Okay,
Have to go to DC on that one.
got it. And then I think, let's see, correct. Convocation is the 7th, back to school bash is the 4th.
Convocation is
Okay,
7th,
what
right?
time? 8
Co-
or 9 convocation? Sorry.
I think it's 9.
7th and 9th.
Be prepared for all the board members that Ms. Jones is going to be doing a little photo op for us.
Convocation.
Awkward photo.
Convocation.
What shirt?
We're not going to tell you any more than
We're-
that
we're
because
gonna-
it's going to be a surprise.
We're bringing y'all, we're gonna get y'all shirt. We've got those ordered. New shirt for the board this year.
What? Yes.
I am too.
It won't be bad.
To be determined.
So that was all the items that I had for today. So we'll start, Mr. English. Do you have board comments?
Great job, continue to move forward. Thank you to the district and administration. Look forward to the coming year. I have a couple of questions I want to send. I'm actually going to send that in an email. Just on some things I've kind of written down. Hopefully like to get over, discuss for the year. Just kind of as we move forward on those. And that's it for me.
Thank you, Mr. English. Mr. Olson?
Hope staff enjoyed their time off. Time to ramp back up. Looking forward to the year. A lot of great things happening. I think that's evident in the report. So thank you, staff, for all those great presentations tonight. The only question I did have that I would like to see a follow-up on is I know that's been tossed around about the monitor that's going to be at the high school by the gym. We've got that big open blue area. I was just kind of curious if that was going to be used from possibly funds from the report tonight, or if there's any plans for that big giant area right by the basketball gym.
Yes, I have an answer. There's a plan for that, and we're still moving forward on the technology that is needed for the, I hate to call them TVs, but they're monitors basically, and they're multiple monitors. That is something that we're working through right now, and the plan is to have something up there as quickly as we can. I'll leave it there because I've had that same conversation.
I just asked, just want to see if there's an update. That's all for me.
Okay. Ms. Harding?
No, I'm good. Thank you guys for tonight. And the brownies.
Mr. Blackwood?
Just one is, again, staff, everyone, thank you for being here. Thank you for helping out. All your presentations, information, been wonderful. It's mainly for from Mr. English and Ms. Harding. We still need to work on our social committee. We've been missing on that for the past several months.
Yep.
I had another question regarding the latest addition and follow-up on the for the for the operating procedures for the online and social media.
Yes, I've got, yeah, it'll be workshop
Okay.
related.
I just remember we
I've-
talked about following up on that, but
Yeah.
hadn't really had anything updated.
You've
So,
sent
yeah.
me,
Yeah.
you have, I know, you've sent me for the policy, the social policy,
Like I said, one.
Yeah.
but I haven't seen from others on objectives, goals and objectives. So
And I compiled a list for your rates in that email.
you did,
Okay, so
yes.
you got that, okay.
Got
I
your
didn't return the
things.
original document to you.
So what I'll do is I've got them, which I didn't bring with me. I'll pull them out, and then those that I'm missing, I'll just communicate with you to give a quick up, see if they'll send those over. Yeah, and then we'll probably bring it to our workshop unless we can do it sooner. Yeah.
And then for Ms. Padilla,
Well, not
when,
till after November.
the delegation assembly, or our delegate, is that next month that we do that for TASB? Okay.
I believe it is.
Okay. All right, that's it. Thank you.
Mr. Gallagher?
Just want to say thank you to the executive team for staying late night. Appreciate everyone being here. Also want to thank the board for just your support and for your comments on Chapter 41. I think it's important that the more that we can inform our community about school finance and the finance system, and as we move forward, now that we're Chapter 41, we will be sending more money back to the state each and every year. So when I did that video where when we receive more money, we actually send money back, I think it's important that our community knows that when property tax increases, it does not mean an increase in
Less for us, we pay more.
and I think the more we can educate our community, the better off they will be, so they understand just the ins and outs of it. And you had mentioned earlier, contact
Mr. Patterson?
Yeah, Mr. Patterson, who's running for a state representative, and I've had some discussions with him, and he's a great candidate, and he also believes in property tax reform, but we also want to make sure that he supports the direction we need to go with school funding. So thank you, board members, for your comments. And other than that, we're excited for the school year to get started, and tomorrow we welcome back our administrators. We've got a great day planned for them.
Perfect. All right, need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Do I have a second? Second. All those in favor, please raise your hand. We will adjourn at 9:57. That was fast.